Yo, what's up, gamers? So, I walked into the breakroom today and Sharon from marketing has turned the TV area into a full Summer Game Fest reaction desk. There's a ring light pointed at the couch, a stack of fake press badges on the table, 3 empty coffee cups, and Sharon is standing there with the clipboard like she personally has to market every trailer before lunch. One note says clip this, another says thumbnail face, then there's one that says too many sequels, and my personal favorite, horror fans are eating. So I'm standing there like, Sharon, are we watching Summer Game Fest, or are we trying to launch a trailer reaction empire from the break room? And she goes, Scruffy, every review is a content opportunity. And of course it is, because Summer Game Fest 2026 dropped a massive piles of reveals, sequels, remakes, horror games, RPGs, new IPs, and a few announcements that made everybody say, wait, that's real. But since Scruffy the Janitor is still a one-man show, one janitor, one mop, and one breakroom TV fighting for its life, we're not covering every single announcement one by one. That would turn this video into a trailer-powered endurance test. Instead, we're cleaning up the top 15 Summer Game Fest announcements, the biggest names, the strongest trailers, the ones people were still talking about after the show ended. Summer Game Fest did not drop a showcase, they dropped a trailer tornado with zombies, aliens, pirates, emotional wolves, and at least 3 games trying to ruin 2027. So before we get into this, do me a favor, smash that like button if the Summer Game Fest just made your backlog worse, subscribe if you want the showcase chaos cleaned up, and tell me down in the comments below, what announcement surprised you the most? Now let's grab a mop. Yeah, you too, because Summer Game Fest just dumped the trailer tornado into the break room and Sharon is already trying to turn every reveal into an engagement post, and I need your help to help me clean this up. First up, Resident Evil Veronica. This is the horror remake fans have been waiting for. We're going back to Claire Redfield's search for Chris after Resident Evil 2, with Umbrella Secrets, the Ashford twins, zombies, puzzles, survival horror, and one very bad island situation. The big deal here is that Capcom has already remade Resident Evil 2, 3, and 4, but Code Veronica always felt like the creepy classic left locked in the basement. Now it's fully getting a modern survival horror treatment. With updated visuals, modern controls, resource management, this is Capcom looking at the remake vault and saying, fine, we'll open the creepy one here. Next up is Final Fantasy VII Revelation. This is the big one, the final part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy, bringing Cloud and the party back for the endgame. We're talking Sephiroth, Meteor, the weapons, the high wind, and all of the emotional RPG damage Square Enix has been saving since Remake and Rebirth. The big hook is scale. This is supposed to push the world even further, with more exploration, big set pieces, deeper party mechanics, and the kind of finale where every character looks like they're carrying 12 years of unresolved trauma. With a spring 2027 target, this is already one of the biggest RPGs on the calendar. This is the game where Square Enix looks at your feelings and says, we saved the expensive damage for last. Next up is Alien Isolation 2. This is a sequel horror fans have been begging for. The setup puts a survey team on a remote colony, where they find a crashed vessel, and because this is Alien, absolutely nothing good comes from touching space wreckage. The Xenomorph is back, which means stealth, survival, limited resources, and that horrible cat and mouse feeling where every sound feels like a personal mistake. The original Alien Isolation became one of the most respected horror games ever because it made you feel haunted. And this sequel looks ready to bring that panic back with bigger spaces, more tension, and probably several doors you will not want to open. This is a game where walking too loudly feels like signing your own resignation letter. Next is Stellar Blade: Blood Rain. This is a sequel to Stellar Blade with a darker, rain-slick cyberpunk vibe and a new protagonist named Eve stepping into the fight. You're hunting monsters through neon-lit streets, using fast close-quarters action, stylish attacks, and that slick combat energy that made the first game stand out. It has that flashy action, but now it looks moodier, darker, and more dangerous, like the whole city just failed a vibe inspection. Stellar Blade built a real action game audience, so a sequel with a new lead instantly gets attention. This is the game that looked at the first Stellar Blade and said, what if the weather also had attitude? Next up is Wolf Among Us 2. Big B Wolf is finally back, and that alone is enough to wake up every Telltale fan who has been waiting in the shadows since the first game. This continues the noir fairy tale mystery style, with Big B working cases in Fabletown, making choices, dealing with consequences, and trying to keep order in a world where every familiar story has emotional baggage. It's choice-driven, character-focused, and built around moral gray areas instead of clean hero moments. This is a game where every fairy tale put on a trench coat and start making bad decisions. Next up is a Cuphead sequel and Mighty Cuphead Adventure. So yes, Cuphead fans are getting hit twice. One is a proper new Cuphead adventure with that classic cartoon look, hard boss fights, run and gun platforming, and beautiful animation hiding absolute pain behind every smile. Then Mighty Cup Adventure brings in more retro 8-bit action platformer style, like somebody shoved Cuphead into an old school cartridge and dared you to survive. So 2 new projects is a serious surprise. This is Studio NDHR saying, you survived the first one, now do it again. Next is Guild Wars 3. This is the big return of the Guild Wars series. For MMO fans, this is not a small announcement. Guild Wars 2 came out back in 2012, so a new mainline entry means people are ready to see what this world looks like with modern design, better technology, and a fresh push. You're looking at an open world fantasy exploration, action combat, guild systems, PvE, PvP, and a version that seems built to reach players beyond just the old PC crowd. The goal here is a modern evolution of the MMO. This is the game where your guild calendar becomes more organized in your real life. Next up is Gen Atlas. This is the new game from Fumito Ueda, the creator behind Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, and The Last Guardian. So right away you know this is not going to explain itself like a normal game. You wake up on a strange mechanical planet, explore massive structures, use a jetpack, vehicles, firearms, and somehow control a giant flying robot head to possess machines. It has open world action adventure energy, giant robots, and that quiet mystery where everything looks ancient, sad, and probably taller than your apartment building. This is the kind of game where nobody explains anything, and somehow that makes it even more powerful. Next is 1666 Amsterdam. You play as Noah, a witch in a cursed version of Amsterdam, dealing with demonic originals, strange powers, old world mystery, and a story that apparently also involves seeing parts of the world through a cat. And with a free prologue demo available now, people can actually try the weirdness early. This is what happens when history class gets cursed and the cat knows too much. Next up is Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. This brings back Edward Kenway's pirate and adventure during the Caribbean Golden Age, with naval combat, stealth, parkour, exploration, and the whole assassin versus Templar conflict sailing underneath the pirate chaos. Black Flag is still one of the most loved Assassin's Creed games because it nailed the fantasy of being a pirate. You're not just climbing towers, you're upgrading your ship, boarding enemies, hunting treasure, and causing ocean problems with historical confidence. So bringing that back with modern visuals and updated gameplay is a big deal. This is Assassin's Creed remembering that sometimes the best stealth tool is a pirate ship. Next is TMNT The Last Ronin. And this is not Saturday morning cartoon Ninja Turtles. This is based on the darker comic where the last surviving turtle is fighting through a dystopian future, carrying grief, revenge, and probably way too much emotional damage for a franchise that once made pizza a personality trait. It takes TMNT and pushes it into a more action-adventure direction with intense combat, a serious story, and a world that already looks like Hope got evicted. For fans of the comic, this is the version they wanted to see adapted. This is Ninja Turtles after somebody turned off the pizza and turned on the trauma. Next up is Palworld 1.0. This is a survival monster chaos finally going full launch. Palworld already exploded in early access because it makes creature collecting, open world survival, crafting, base building, multiplayer, and the kind of PAL-powered work setup that makes you wonder who approved the employee handbook. This is the full version where players collect PALs, build bases, craft gear, fight enemies, survive the world, and create absolute monster factory nonsense with friends. It is creature collecting but with survival mechanics and a workplace safety record that left the building. This is the game that looked at creature collecting and said, what if OSHA gave up? Next is Lords of the Fallen 2. This is more dark fantasy punishment for the Souls-like crowd. You're getting brutal combat, dangerous areas, exploration, bosses, builds, and a world that looks like every cathedral was designed by somebody having a bad week. The 2023 Lords of the Fallen reboot built an audience, but this sequel is where they can sharpen the formula, improve what worked, and give players another grim fantasy world full of things that want them folded like laundry. If you like heavy combat, tense exploration, and bosses that treat your health bar like a suggestion, this is one to watch. This is the game where every hallway looks like it charges rent and wants you evicted. Next up is Control Resonant. This is Remedy getting paranormal again, which means the Federal Bureau of Control is probably dealing with another reality-bending disaster that nobody in the building properly labeled. Control worked because it mixed supernatural powers, gunplay, strange environments, and that unsettling office energy where every room feels like it knows something you do not. So with Control Resonant, expect more wild threats, more mind-bending spaces, and more of that Remedy storytelling where the building is basically a character with electrical problems and secrets. This is the game where the office supplies are haunted, and somehow still not the worst part of the job. And finally, we have Saw Genesis. This brings Jigsaw back to gaming with traps, puzzles, survival decisions, moral dilemmas, and the kind of room design that makes you immediately want to leave a bad review for the architect. The hook here is simple. You're not just fighting monsters, you are trying to survive situations built to test your choices and whether you can solve a puzzle while panic is standing directly behind you, breathing on your neck. Saw has not had a major game moment in a while, so a new horror entry instantly gets curiosity from fans. This is the game where escape room night goes legally, emotionally, and medically wrong. And that's the top 15 Summer Game Fest pile. So what does this actually mean? Summer Game Fest 2026 was not one clean kind of showcase. This thing had horror remakes, RPG finales, alien survival, anime action, noir storytelling, Cuphead chaos, MMOs, new IPs, pirates, turtles, monster survival, Souls-likes, paranormal offices, and horror traps. This is not a showcase, this is the backlog explosion with the stage light. So now we're back in the break room and Sharon is still at that fake trailer hype desk, but now the ring light is overheating, the fake press badges are everywhere, the coffee cups have multiplied, and her clipboard has 3 sections saying, too many sequels, horror fans are winning, and my personal favorite, do not let Scruffy cover everything. Sharon looks at me and says, Scruffy, I need 15 separate reaction posts by the end of the day. And I'm like, Sharon, I just survived Resident Evil, Alien, Saw, and whatever emotional and voice Final Fantasy VII is about to send everybody. This was Summer Game Fest handing us a backlog with a smoke machine and a copyright-safe trailer monologue. Well, that's all I got. I gotta bounce before Sharon turns all 15 reveals into separate engagement posts, asks me to film a reaction face for every horror game, and makes me rank Cuphead bosses by brand awareness. But before I go, do me a favor. Smash that like button if Summer Game Fest made your backlog worse, and subscribe if you want the showcase chaos cleaned up. Now tell me in the comments down below, what was your biggest announcement? Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII, Alien Isolation 2, Cuphead, or one of the weird ones? This is ScruffyDJanitor signing off. Peace out.